A young girl plays alone in her bedroom at 11 p.m. One of her toys suddenly activates on its own, playing the exact melody she was just humming. Seconds later, she slides under the bed as if something is pulling her. Her mother locks the room for 2 days before checking what's underneath. Case 1. The Toy That Knew. On the night of March 5th, 2024, what should have been an ordinary bedtime slowly turned into something that left an entire family shaken and questioning whether they could continue living in their own home. A young girl was still awake well past when she was supposed to be asleep. Sitting on the floor of her bedroom surrounded by toys and completely absorbed in her own little world, while her parents assumed she had already fallen asleep hours earlier. The house was quiet and nothing seemed out of place, but according to her mother, around 11 p.m., the surveillance camera installed in the child's room captured something that they still struggle to explain to this day. In the footage, the girl can be seen playing calmly at first, appearing relaxed and humming softly to herself as children often do when they're lost in imaginative play. And then, without warning, something changes dramatically in the atmosphere of the room. One of her toys suddenly activates on its own with no one touching it or going near it, and it begins playing a melody the exact same tune the child had just been humming moments earlier. Within seconds, she is partially underneath the bed frame, and her posture doesn't look playful or like she's hiding during a game. It looks defensive, as if she's reacting to something in the room that we cannot see on camera. And then slowly, almost unnaturally, her body appears to slide further under the bed frame in a movement that doesn't look like a child simply crawling into a hiding spot. Naturally, there are logical explanations people might suggest when analyzing this footage. Toys can malfunction due to low batteries or electronic interference. Motion sensors can misfire and activate devices randomly, and children can act unpredictably when playing alone and lost in their imagination. But when you watch the clip in real time with the sound and see the sequence of events unfold, it's genuinely hard not to feel that something about the timing is profoundly off, especially the fact that the toy played the exact melody she had been humming, and especially the sudden shift in her behavior immediately afterward. After that night, the mother reportedly locked the room and refused to enter it for days. Deeply unsettled by what she had witnessed on the footage, and afraid of what else might be captured if she continued monitoring the space. But the story didn't end there, because a few days later she decided to record again, and this time the camera captured something beneath the bed that made the situation exponentially worse. The footage shows something lying flat on the floor in the shadows, something that at first glance looks like a small, pale figure, almost child-sized, positioned awkwardly under the bed frame. The immediate assumption would be that it's simply one of the daughter's dolls that had been placed or kicked under the bed, and was now lying in an odd position that makes it look disturbing in the dim lighting. And that explanation makes perfect rational sense. It's the most logical conclusion. But as the camera lingers on the object, there's a brief moment where it appears, just for a split second, as though the doll's head subtly shifts position. It could absolutely be a trick of lighting, a shift in perspective as the camera moves, or compression artifacts in the digital footage, creating the illusion of movement where there is none. But in that instant, the mother watching the screen panics completely and rushes out of the room in genuine terror, unable to process what she thinks she's seeing. Even if we accept the most logical and rational explanations, a toy glitching due to low battery, a doll positioned in a way that tricks the eye and creates an unsettling silhouette in the shadows, there's still one question that remains difficult to shake and impossible to answer with certainty. What made that little girl retreat under the bed so urgently in the first place? Was she responding to something she imagined in her mind? Something she misinterpreted in the darkness? Or something that wasn't captured clearly enough by the camera's lens for us to see? Before we continue, I want to mention something exciting. We're on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers, and when we get there, 3 lucky people will each receive a $50 Amazon gift card. All you have to do is subscribe and leave a comment on this video to be entered in the draw. It's completely free, and your support helps us create more content like this. So hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below, and let's get back to the disturbing footage. Case 2, the hacked Ring camera. Ashley Lame, a mother of 3 children living in a quiet neighborhood, had installed a Ring security camera inside her daughter's bedroom back in December of 2019. And like many parents, her intention wasn't surveillance for control or constant monitoring. It was simply peace of mind, a way to keep an eye on things while giving her children independence and ensuring they were safe while she was in other parts of the house. The camera was positioned in the room as an extra layer of security that many modern parents have come to rely on in an age where technology promises to keep our families safer. One day, one of her daughters named Alyssa heard a voice coming from inside the bedroom while she was in the hallway. And at first, she naturally assumed one of her sisters was playing a prank, or trying to scare her, as siblings often do. So she walked into the room expecting to find someone there hiding behind furniture or giggling in a corner, but the room was completely empty with no one visible anywhere. Almost immediately after she entered, the voice began speaking directly to her in a way that made it clear this wasn't coming from inside the house at all. It wasn't muffled or distant, it was crystal clear and coming directly through the Ring camera's built-in speaker system. The person on the other end, whoever had gained unauthorized access to the camera feed, began repeatedly directing inappropriate and disturbing language toward Alyssa, saying things no stranger should ever say to a child in any context. The footage shows Alyssa looking increasingly confused and frightened, trying desperately to figure out where the voice is coming from and who could possibly be speaking to her. She walks back out of the room into the hallway and calls out to her family members, saying she can't hear them clearly and asking if someone is trying to talk to her, still assuming at this point that someone inside the house must be playing an elaborate trick on her. But no one answers her calls, and no one in the family admits to speaking through any device or playing any kind of joke. When she returns to the room after getting no response from her family, the voice continues speaking to her, and this time, it attempts to persuade her to misbehave in ways that are deeply concerning. The voice encourages her to break things, to make a mess, to do whatever she wants without consequences, using tactics clearly designed to build false trust and manipulate a child's natural desire for friendship and approval. The voice even claims to be Santa Claus and asks if she wants to be his best friend, which is a manipulation technique predators often use to establish rapport with children before escalating their behavior. You can see the shift in Alyssa's demeanor captured clearly on the security footage. Confusion turns into genuine fear as the realization slowly sets in that this voice isn't coming from inside the house at all, and that whoever is speaking can see her through the camera and is watching her reactions in real time. Eventually, after several terrifying minutes of this interaction, she finally calls out loudly for her parents with urgency in her voice. Ashley and her husband rushed into the room immediately when they heard their daughter's distressed calls, and they quickly unplugged the Ring camera from the power source to stop the voice. Later that same day, after researching what had happened, they completely removed the entire Ring system from their home and haven't used any similar devices since. The incident was ultimately traced back to compromised login credentials through a cybersecurity investigation. The family had reportedly reused the same email and password combination from another website that had previously suffered a major data breach years earlier, and that breach had exposed millions of users' login information to hackers who then systematically tried those credentials on other platforms, including Ring camera systems. What makes this case deeply unsettling on multiple levels isn't just that someone hacked into a home security device, it's that they didn't just passively watch the camera feed in silence. They actively spoke, they deliberately interacted, and they specifically targeted a child directly in what should have been the safest place in the entire house. Her own bedroom, where she should feel completely secure and protected from the outside world. Case 3. The Mysterious Hand. A young woman named Lana uploaded a video that quickly exploded across social media, racking up more than 23 million views in a remarkably short time. What made the clip spread so rapidly wasn't flashy editing or dramatic storytelling, it was how ordinary everything looked at first. Late one night, Lana was sitting alone in her room, casually scrolling through her phone, unaware that anything unusual was about to happen. The setting felt calm, familiar, almost boring in its normalcy. And that's exactly why what followed unsettled so many viewers. Without warning, a strange hand appears from behind her and gently touches the top of her head. There is no dramatic buildup, no obvious visual trick, just a sudden physical interaction that shouldn't be possible if she was truly alone. Lana immediately reacts, startled and confused, jumping up to search the room. She checks behind her, looks around the corners, scans every visible space, but there is no one there. According to her, the doors were locked and no one else was inside the house. The moment felt real and her reaction didn't seem rehearsed. Not long after, she posted a follow-up video explaining exactly what happened that night and insisting it was not staged. In her explanation, Lana maintains that she cannot identify what touched her. She says she has replayed the footage countless times, trying to rationalize it, trying to find a logical answer, but the more she watches it, the less sense it makes. Since the incident, she has expressed a growing fear that something unseen may be present inside her home. Whether that fear is justified or not is impossible to confirm. The footage exists, the reaction is real, but what caused it remains open to interpretation. Was it a trick of lighting and perspective, or something far less ordinary? Case 4. The Intruder in Flushing. In late November 2015, footage from a home on 33rd Avenue near Union Street in Flushing, Queens, changed the neighborhood's perception of safety overnight and left residents questioning whether they should install additional security measures or move to different areas entirely. Flushing, Queens, is generally described as a quiet and safe neighborhood where families raise children and people feel comfortable walking at night. But security cameras at one residence captured a man wearing a backpack and a black cap labeled Diamond, approaching the property under cover of darkness in the early morning hours, when most residents were deep in sleep. He entered through an unlocked back door that the homeowners had forgotten to secure before going to bed, a simple oversight that nearly cost them everything. What followed once he was inside the house was methodical and calculated in a way that suggests this wasn't his first time breaking into occupied homes. Inside the residence, he moved carefully and almost theatrically through the rooms, rising onto his tiptoes to avoid making noise that might wake the sleeping occupants. Then at one point, captured clearly on the security footage, he dropped down to his hands and knees and began crawling across the floor with what appeared to be a knife clenched between his teeth like something out of a horror film. The most chilling part of this entire sequence that makes it genuinely nightmarish is that the homeowners, a married couple, were asleep in that exact same room while this was happening, completely unaware that an armed stranger was crawling across their bedroom floor just feet away from where they lay vulnerable and defenseless. He maneuvered quietly and deliberately, retrieving a cell phone from a dresser near the bed without waking either of the sleeping victims. The footage released publicly by police ended at that point for privacy reasons, but the homeowner later explained in interviews with local news that seconds after the footage cuts off, he suddenly woke to the sound of movement across the floor near the foot of the bed. When he rose from the bed and turned on the light, the intruder stood up immediately from his crawling position and fled the house through the same back door he had entered, running into the darkness before police could arrive. No one was physically harmed during the incident, but that fact doesn't lessen the psychological trauma of what almost happened that night. Police described the suspect as approximately 6 feet 2 inches tall and around 200 pounds based on the security footage analysis. But despite the remarkably clear footage showing his face and distinctive clothing, he was never successfully identified by investigators, never arrested, and never charged with any crime. What unsettled residents throughout the neighborhood most in the weeks and months following the incident wasn't what the intruder took from the house, a single cell phone with minimal monetary value. It was what he brought with him that created lasting fear, a knife clenched between his teeth, suggesting his intentions may have gone far beyond simple theft if the homeowners had woken up and confronted him during the break-in. 3 children were inside the home that night, sleeping in adjacent bedrooms, and 2 adults were asleep just feet away from where an armed stranger crawled across their bedroom floor. An unlocked back door was the only thing separating this family from something that could have ended in violence, injury, or death if circumstances had been slightly different. Afterward, the family told reporters they would never leave any door unlocked again regardless of how safe the neighborhood feels, and they upgraded their security system significantly. As for the man captured so clearly on camera crawling through their bedroom with a knife, where he went next, whether he struck again in different neighborhoods, and what his true intentions were that night remain unknown to this day. Case 5. The Jameson family disappearance. In 2009, the disappearance of Bobby and Sherilyn Jameson and their 6-year-old daughter Madison became one of those cases that feels less like a standard missing persons file and more like a slow spiraling collapse captured in fragments of evidence that never quite form a complete picture. From the outside looking in, they appeared to be an ordinary family living in Eufaula, Oklahoma, dealing with the same financial pressures and daily challenges that many American families face. But behind the scenes, their marriage was unstable with frequent arguments. Money was extremely tight with both adults struggling to make ends meet, and both had serious health struggles that complicated their daily lives. Bobby had chronic pain stemming from a major car accident years earlier and was on permanent disability, unable to work regular jobs. Sherilyn had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and, according to family reports and medical records, didn't always stay consistent with her prescribed medication regimen, which led to mood swings and erratic behavior that put strain on the entire household. In the weeks leading up to their disappearance, the family spoke frequently about starting over somewhere new, leaving their current life behind and building something better. They had made plans to inspect a 40-acre plot of land near Red Oak, approximately 30 miles away from their current home, and they specifically asked the real estate agent to allow them to view the property without professional supervision, saying they wanted privacy to make their decision. Around the same time, they pulled Madison out of kindergarten abruptly following a dispute with school administrators over educational policies, and then the family went completely quiet and stopped responding to calls or messages from extended family members. At first, this didn't immediately alarm people close to them because the Jamesons were known to go off-grid periodically and keep to themselves for days or weeks at a time when they wanted space from the outside world. The real alarm only hit 9 days later when hunters discovered the family's truck abandoned at the edge of dense woods on a dirt road miles from any residential areas. The inside of the vehicle immediately raised the kind of disturbing questions that don't come from a simple, "they got lost while hiking" scenario. Police reportedly found their cell phones sitting on the seats, a GPS unit that could have helped them navigate, their wallets containing identification and credit cards, and multiple empty prescription pill bottles scattered throughout the vehicle. And then came the detail that made the situation feel especially cruel and tragic. Their dog was discovered alive inside the locked vehicle, severely dehydrated and starving after being trapped for days without food or water, while temperatures climbed during the daytime. Even stranger and more confusing, police found a large amount of cash, approximately $32,000 in various bills, sitting openly in the truck, despite the family's well-documented financial problems and struggles to pay basic bills. It was as if someone had carefully packed for starting a completely new life somewhere else and then never got the chance to actually begin that new chapter. Adding to the general unease surrounding the case, investigators also discovered an angry multi-page letter reportedly written by Sherilyn that painted a disturbing picture of intense resentment, fear, and dysfunction inside the home. The kind of writing that reads like a relationship that had already passed the point of possible repair and was heading towards some kind of breaking point. With the family officially missing and the truck abandoned with all these disturbing clues inside it, a massive search operation unfolded across the region. Volunteers from surrounding communities, trained search dogs, and specialized law enforcement units combed the area for months looking for any trace of the family. And along the way, police also reviewed deeply unsettling home security footage that had been filmed on the day the Jamesons left their house for the last time. In that video, the family can be seen loading items into the truck, but their movements appear strangely repetitive, disconnected, and mechanical. Multiple trips back and forth carrying items, moving things and then moving them again for no apparent reason. Unexplained clothing changes, and almost no visible interaction between family members, as if three people were operating in parallel, rather than together as a family unit preparing for a trip. Some observers who analyzed the footage later suggested the behavior looked consistent with substance influence or severe mental strain affecting all three family members simultaneously. But nothing about that security footage on its own could answer the core question that haunted investigators. Did this family leave by choice and meet with an accident? Or did something or someone intercept them after they left the property? Over the years that followed, the case absorbed multiple layers of rumor and speculation, talk of paranoia about being watched or followed, claims of religious fears about demonic presence, suggestions that Sherilyn was involved with occult practices that frightened the family. But the only thing that actually mattered, the only concrete fact that could anchor the entire story, was that the Jameson family never came back from wherever they went that day. Then in November 2013, 4 full years after they vanished without a trace, hunters discovered skeletal remains of 2 adults and 1 child in the woods, roughly 3 miles from where the abandoned truck had been found years earlier. The remains were ultimately identified through dental records and DNA analysis as belonging to Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison Jameson, finally giving the family some form of closure. But decomposition was so advanced after 4 years of exposure to the elements that an official cause of death could not be determined by the medical examiner, which meant investigators were left with a resolution that wasn't really a resolution at all. The family was found, but the how and why of their deaths stayed permanently locked away. And that's what keeps this case genuinely haunting, years later. It contains obvious signals of turmoil, financial stress, health issues, fear, isolation from support systems, but none of those factors cleanly explains how an entire family of 3 ends up dead in the woods, with no definitive mechanism of death, no confirmed suspect, and no single narrative strong enough to close the case file with certainty. These cases prove that security cameras capture far more than we want to see: children interacting with invisible forces, hackers speaking to victims through their own devices, intruders crawling through bedrooms with knives, and final moments before people vanish forever. The footage exists, preserved digitally and impossible to deny, but the explanations remain just out of reach. Because sometimes the most disturbing thing about security cameras isn't what they fail to capture, it's what they show us that we can't explain.